Connected. Got on. Awesome. I think we're live in all of the places. Yes, I think we're live in all of the places. Hello, everyone. I'm Carol Williams with Williams Immigration, a boutique immigration law firm where we help businesses and families navigate our U.S. immigration system. I used to work inside USCIS. It was fun times. And I used to work in Washington, D.C. as an adjudications officer working on policy issues. So I bring a little bit of razzle dazzle to my practice because of that. But I do work with quite a few families, quite a few businesses, helping businesses get work visas and green cards for their employees. Sometimes it's the founders who need the work authorization and green cards. So I work with founders as well. And then I also work with family members who are looking to get green cards for their fiance, their spouse, their dependent children, and their aging parents. My glasses are filthy. So I wanted to come back. We were on last night for about an hour and a half. But I wanted to come back tonight again and just kind of give you an update of what's going on in immigration, answer any questions that you all have. If you have any questions, much better, much clearer. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them and help kind of educate you on what's happening in immigration, what happens with cases in general. I am an immigration lawyer, but I'm not your immigration lawyer, so I cannot give you your own specific case answers, but we can certainly talk generally and just really more of an educational type situation. But if you want to work with us, you can just click the link in the bio and that starts the whole process. But if you guys have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat. But I wanted to kind of talk a little bit about U.S. citizenship. We've seen U.S. citizenship kind of hit from a couple of different ways recently. The White House is trying to challenge birthright citizenship. So we're seeing, U.S. citizenship sort of attacked from that way. We're also seeing it attacked from the application standpoint. So we're looking at changes there. And from an application standpoint, the rule is essentially that there's several things you have to do in order to apply for U.S. citizenship and to meet those qualifications. One of the things is show that you have good moral character. Good moral character is generally not having a criminal record. The other thing they like to look at is that you are paying into your taxes. And if you haven't paid them, that you have a payment plan in place, so that's also okay. And that you are paying for and supporting any children that you have, whether those children be here in the States, US, or outside of the States. So those are kind of some of the biggies, not the only thing that they look at, but some of the biggies. So now what they're saying, now the policy will be that instead of proving an absence of things have happened, so instead of showing that you haven't had a crime, they want to see they want us to be more proactive and show that you have done things that put you in a state of being of good moral character. So we are looking at how much information, how much documentation, how much of your story do we tell in terms of maybe what you do in your faith-based organization. Are you volunteering with your kids' PTA? Are you a little league coach? That sort of thing. Do you go out and feed the homeless on the weekends? What is it that you are doing that makes you of good moral character? So that's slightly new territory, new ground for us when it comes to a citizenship application. But that's what we do. We sort of move with the waves, and we will keep it going. Hello, Joanna Collins from from beautiful St. Kitts. I feel like I'm going to have to put that on my list of places to go. What do we have here for questions? This might be a little too specific to go into here, but let me read it all. Priority date October 31st, 2016. Documentarily qualified December 22nd, 2022. Case category F2B. All chargeability from Nairobi, Kenya. When to expect an interview appointment letter. Just check the visa bulletin, and F2B is October 15th. October 15th, 2016. It has not moved for 2 months since then. Well, it looks like the priority date is current based on the F2B bulletin. I would one, make sure that you're looking at the right visa bulletin, or I guess the right chart in the visa bulletin. There are two. But yeah, I would say that, it looks like from what you've said that that this person is one, documentarily qualified, and two, ahead of the visa bulletin date. So you may want to reach out if they are at NBC. You may want to reach out to NBC and say, "Hi, we're here. We'd like to get an interview." I would zhuzh it up a teeny bit more than that, but yeah, I think you can reach out to NBC and see what's happening. And you guys, I think, something that we talked about last night, or something that I found myself saying a lot last night, is that we can reach out to the agencies. That's not something that we cannot do, right? There are mechanisms in place where we can reach out to the agencies. Now, full disclosure, you may not like the response that you get, right? But one, there's a mechanism to reach out, and two, you're getting a response. So I would say that's sort of a win-win. But just because you reach out doesn't mean that you're going to get a response that you like, right? I mean, truly. Now, there are times when I reach out and I get responses that I like, and that's fine. But you gotta kind of, I would be perfectly fine. Oh, wait a minute. Hold on. Priority date, it's October 31st. Visa bulletin is October. Oh, sorry. Yeah, you're not current. Sorry. Visa bulletin. Yeah, you're not current. Yeah. So if you're not current, then you're not current. So what happens with the visa bulletin is somebody in State Department crunches all the numbers. Like they math. They do some serious math. So they crunch all the numbers, and they essentially say, we have enough cases in the pipeline, so individuals from these specific countries in these specific categories, we'll start working on their cases. But if you're not current yet, which you are not, close to current but not current, then you just have to wait until the visa bulletin moves. If you are looking at the visa bulletin monthly, I would read the notes in the visa bulletin. Those notes are sometimes extremely helpful in terms of looking at, sometimes the State Department will put information in those notes that is forward looking. For instance, on the employment side, they're still thinking that we may run out of employment-based green card numbers by the end of the fiscal year. Well, the end of the fiscal year is September, the last day of September. So it's not as dire as it sounds. Again, not what anybody wants to hear, right? Everyone wants to hear that they're processing like consistently, 24/7, and that, everyone's going to get approval. But, so that came out in the notes about a month ago, I think in the August visa bulletin. So read the notes. There may be a little bit of information in there in terms of when they think numbers will move ahead. But we're coming towards the end of the fiscal year, so those dates may not move. I would be super curious to see what happens on October 1. That's when we typically see movement. But yeah, you're right. You're not. That priority date's not current then, assuming the dates that you've put in the chat are accurate. So yeah, you just have to kind of wait until the dates move. Like I don't know when they will move for any specific category, because trust and believe, if all of us immigration attorneys did, we'd be so excited. So yeah, unfortunately, you just gotta kind of have to wait. But you're close. Hopefully, it won't retrogress and go backwards. That's kind of the tricky thing about the visa bulletin, is that those dates can move forwards and backwards. But you're on it, so I would just continue to follow it, honestly. What else do we have here? Let's see here. Sorry, I saw some things and I missed the scroller. What do we got? Filed VAWA and adjustment of status. It's been 82 days without any receipt notices. My office doesn't handle VAWA, so I don't know if that is normal. Sometimes there are what I call glitches in the matrix. So because I don't handle VAWA, I don't know if 82 days should have you sounding alarm bells or not, or if it should just have you saying, oh, it's 82 days. So yeah, unfortunately, I don't actually know the answer to that. If that were an employee-based case, I would say 82 days is incredibly long, and we should start asking some questions. But I don't know if that's the case for VAWA. The A files, you can request copies of. Does that show if a person's green card is revoked or deported? If you request a complete A file for yourself, what you will get is a full copy of what the Immigration Service has in their files for you, less they will redact anything that has personal information for someone else. For instance, if you were sponsored by a spouse or by a parent, they will give you and you filed, let's say, an I-130. You filed a 485. They will take those forms and they will black out and they will redact everything about the sponsor. And they will leave everything that is about you. So if you're asking for your file and you want information as to whether or not your green card has been revoked or what have you, it should be in that information should be in your A file. You should be able to get that via FOIA. But just know that the file that you receive will not have anybody else's information in there. So it won't have a sponsor's information. I don't know how the green card was obtained. But just be aware of that there could be redacted portions. So don't think that there's anything necessarily wrong with what you receive if that's the route that is the route that you go. Healing Virgo says hello. Oh, I have so many Virgos in my life. That's funny. Let's see here. What do I got here? Is it still hard to get expedited requests for an I-130 family spouse? I'm assuming your spouse is overseas. You have filed, I'm going to guess. I'm assuming your spouse is overseas. You have filed the I-130 here in the U.S. You are wanting to get them here. That's what I'm guessing. Listen, expediting cases is hard. It is very hard with U.S. immigration. U.S. immigration processes cases first in, first out. So basically, you stand in line. To ask for your case to be expedited means that you are essentially asking them to put you at the front of the line, and this is it's a massively long line. So in order for the Immigration Service to do that, they've come up with criteria, which are on their website, as to when they will expedite a case. So just because I think something is important and your case should be expedited does not mean the Immigration Service is going to agree with me, right? Just because you think your case should be expedited does not mean immigration is going to agree with you. So getting expedites, jumping ahead, essentially thousands of people in line, is a heavy ask. So will they expedite your case to get your spouse over here? I don't know. Can you ask? You can, but I don't know if they will. I don't know if they will do that. I don't know if they will do that. Expedite is something that the agency takes very, very seriously. I-130 approved. I-45 still actively reviewed. What's the reason for holding my I-45? I have no idea. I have no idea. I can tell you some of the reasons why some I-45s in that situation would be on hold or not processed exactly with the I-45, right? Could be they're waiting for your background checks to come back in. It could be your background checks came back in and there's something going on in your background check that they want more time to look at. It could be that the officer that has your case is on vacation, and all the files are sitting there not being adjudicated while they are, on vacation somewhere, hopefully having fun, because officers do and should get vacation and they should be allowed to have fun, right? Could be that the officer that has your case is sick. It could be that the officer that had your case on their desk has moved to a different position within the agency, and those cases that are on the desk just haven't been redistributed yet. It could be a lot of things. It's not something that I immediately kind of sound up warning bells over. So do I know why your specific case is on hold? I do not. Or why you haven't heard about the 45? I do not. But there are many reasons that have nothing to do with you, or nothing that would have you sending up alarm bells as to why you have not heard on the 45. Can you message me for more info? Absolutely. You can absolutely send me a message. We'll get you a consult set up. You can actually schedule a consult through the link in the bio if you would like to do that. That's totally fine. Healing Virgo, you had triplets in the NICU. Congratulations. Another friend of mine has a little one in the NICU right now. But congratulations, triplets. Whew. That's a lot of work. I bet they're all incredibly adorable too. Let's see what else we have here. If when I got married, didn't take my husband's last name, can I take it when renewing my residency? That is a life decision. You can change your name whenever you want. That's a total life decision. That is zero to do with immigration. Now, is it easier to go through immigration with the same name from beginning to end? Absolutely. Is it impossible? Will that somehow slow down your processing? Probably not. At some point, whatever the next natural point in your process is, if you choose to change your name, again, which is a life decision, if you choose to change your name, then you'll just need to show the Immigration Service at the next application phase that you've changed your name and provide the legal name change document. But it is not. It's not a deal breaker in immigration. Immigration understands that people get married. When some people get married, they change their names. When some people get divorced, they change their names. Some people change their names going through the naturalization process. That has nothing to do with marriage. Or you can change your name whenever you want. So changing your name is not determined by immigration. When you can change your name is not determined by immigration. So I would say that's a life decision. Do that whenever you want. And then at your next immigration process. So you'd have to provide the immigration service evidence of your name change. Let's see, what other questions do we have? Hold on. Got it. Let's see here. I think we may have lost Instagram. I'm getting a note that says they're having problems streaming to Instagram, but well, I won't know till we're done. But that's okay. What else do we have here for questions? What else have you all got? Hold on 1 second. Let me scroll up to scroll down. Someone is saying I never changed my last name in the office. Officers never even brought it up. Well, yeah, I mean, if you don't change it and your name stays the same from the beginning of your process to the end, whatever your process is, then yeah, that's fine. They wouldn't. There's no reason for them to bring that up. Can a U.S. citizen deny re-entry in the U.S. after they've been away for over 5 years? A U.S. citizen can stay out as long as they would like. I'm not sure I understand the question. But yeah, I mean, once you become, so one of the benefits of becoming a U.S. citizen is that you're not limited to the amount of time that you have to be in the U.S. and the time that you can be outside of the U.S. That's one of the benefits, one of the many, but that's one of the benefits of being a U.S. citizen. So when you're a green card holder, 6 months is sort of that magical mark, where they don't like to see green card holders out of the country for 4 6 months at a clip. But if you're a U.S. citizen, you can spend as much time as you like out. Usually when you just come back, they run your passport. Now, you got to make sure that your passport is still valid, right? Like, it's fine. Stay out as long as you want as a U.S. citizen, but please make sure your passport is valid so that when you come back in, they run your passport and they say, welcome home, and, send you on your way. A friend let their DACA expire in 2017. They wanted to renew later, but saw that it had to be an initial application. My office doesn't handle DACA. Like, I am very comfortable with saying DACA is definitely not in my wheelhouse, so I don't know. Someone is asking if I still work for USCIS. I do not. I do not have my own firm, Williams Immigration. So if I still worked for USCIS, I would not be coming to you live, giving you some education and some insight. But no, I no longer work for USCIS. I'm a former past tense employee of the agency, and had a great time when I worked in the agency. It was a fun place. I met some very, very, very cool people in the agency. Let's see here. Grandfathered. Where did it go? Here we go. Grandfathered under 245I. Well, that's good. Due to a labor cert filing, that is a employment-based application process. So grandfathered under 245I to a labor cert that did not pan out due to backlogs, still viable. Are you asking if that particular labor certification is still viable? Like way back when? No. But you can use evidence of having had that filing. If they got to the I-140 stage, you can use that for an application now. You just have to pay the 245I penalty fee. But that's sort of a more complicated answer that is best discussed during consultation, because we'd have to really kind of look into what evidence do you have of labor cert, what evidence do you have of the I-140, If there's also an adjustment that was filed somewhere in there or consular processing that was begun somewhere in there. So we'd have to kind of look and see, where you are with that. But 245I, there are still people that qualify under 245I. Inquiry on your case by congressman help to move your case. Getting a congressional office involved in your case can certainly help move your case along. It can certainly help move your case along. It can certainly kind of help get it sort of out of that sort of like between a rock and a hard place feel, right? What I always tell people when they tell me that they want to get a congressional office involved is this. Getting a congressional office involved is not for easy stuff, right? It's not for the easy stuff. It is, we have tried everything. We have gone through the process. We have used everything at our disposal to try to get this case moving, to try to get a decision to, whatever we're trying to do. And so then we look at whether or not we think a congressional would help. A huge misconception of how a congressional helps is most people who I speak with who ask, we need to get a congressional involved. Someone from a congressional office does not guarantee an approval. It does not. It can certainly help us gently nudge immigration to move the case forward, to make a decision. It does not guarantee a specific decision. So that is something that I try to impress upon people, that getting a congressional involved, my office will not do it right after we have filed, right? We have to give the process a chance to be the process, right? But it is also not a situation where the congressional office can go in and say, I want this case approved right now. That is not what they do. So people have to, I sort of have to explain that to people, that a congressional can help sort of get the immigration service moving your case forward, but it does not guarantee that you're going to get an approval. It does not guarantee that you're going to get the decision that you want, which most people would like an approval, right? But I do think congressionals have been helpful in the past with, kind of being a little bit of a middleman. I think well thought out, and they can absolutely be helpful to get a case moving. My petition I-130 has been pending since June 2020. Is that normal? I don't know. What I would recommend, because the reason I don't know is because I don't know what kind of case you have. So processing times are always going to depend on the type of case you have, and in some cases, the country of origin, right? And so type of case and sometimes country of origin. I would recommend that you go to the USCIS website, which is uscis.gov. Actually, I can do this. I can sort of walk you through it. But if you go to the USCIS website, everything on their homepage is in boxes. So if you go down to the box that says manage your case, you click on processing times, which is the second link. And I always have to wait for my system to verify. But you click on that second link and then you scroll down. There are three drop-down menus. The first one is the form type. The second one is the form category. And the third one is the field office or service center that is currently processing your case. Once you do that, then you click get processing time. It will give you a number, whether it's 5.5 months, 18.5 months, 24.5 months, whatever it is, it will give you a processing time. That processing time is roughly 70 to 80% of the cases with the same category type as your case are processing. Some cases will process faster than that number. Some cases will process longer than that number. So the fact that your case has been pending since June of 2020, I don't know if that's normal because I don't know what kind of case you have. So I that's not something I would sound alarm bells on. If someone were doing a consult with me, I'd be like, well, hold on, let's just look and see, right? And if it turns out that it is beyond normal processing times, you can reach out to the immigration service and say, hi, what's happening? My case is beyond processing times. And then you kind of go from there. Let's see here. Someone is asking if I can discuss SIJS. No. That is, my office does not handle those cases. Yeah, so there are lots of attorneys across the country that can handle those cases, but I am just not one of them, and I am very comfortable telling you that is not in my wheelhouse. What happens if they deny a renewal green card? Why would they deny a renewal green card? If it's a 10-year green card and it's being denied, I have not seen that in my practice. I'm not saying it doesn't happen. I have never seen that happen in my practice. That I would have to sit down and talk with you about, because if it's just renewing a 10-year green card, it shouldn't be. All you're doing is asking for a new card that essentially represents that you are a green card holder. Now, if you applied to renew a 2-year green card, that is an issue. That's called removal of conditions. That's a whole different ball of wax. That's a whole different ball of wax. So that's a completely different case type. So we may want to have a consult and kind of talk about that a little bit more in depth. Why are they now scheduling interviews for child/parent cases? So I'm assuming this is a green card, family-based, because they can. They are now scheduling them because under the previous administration, one of the ways that the previous White House administration was using to work through the backlog that was created during COVID and then continued, one of the ways they were working through that was to waive interviews for cases that they felt were squeaky clean, had really, really good documents, which is why I tell people that they should have really good documents to present. And they felt that those were cases that they could reasonably approve that essentially would not come back to haunt them, right? But that was not law. That was a policy change. That was a policy change to help them work through the backlog. So fast forward, now we have a different administration in the White House. And the current White House administration is looking at more vetting and more background checks. And so the interview is a part of that process. So they have simply gone back to doing the interviews that the prior administration was waiving. So it's really just going back to what it was for eons. So yeah, that's why. But yeah, it doesn't necessarily mean that there's something wrong with your case. Cases now are being called for interview that maybe 18 months, 2 years, 3 years ago wouldn't have necessarily been called for an interview. Can an answer on the I-45 be amended at the interview? I mean, it kind of depends on what question you're trying to amend, right? Oftentimes, so I mean, think about it this way. So any application that you file is a snapshot in time. as of the day that you file that application. So fast forward a year, maybe, maybe 6 months, 8 months, 9 months, whatever it is, until you get to your 45 interview. If you've moved in that time, you should have notified them. You should have notified the immigration service before you moved, before you got to the interview. But let's say you didn't, right? Let's say you changed your name for whatever reason. Doesn't matter. Let's say you changed your name and you moved, right? So the officer generally starts an interview by going through sort of like just the data, just like that sort of biographical data. So I have had officers routinely say, do you still live on this? Do you still live at this address? Is this still your birthday? Whatever, what have you. And like they kind of go through the biographic data. We're human, we make mistakes. So if your birthday numbers got transposed, if your street address was spelled incorrectly, if you have moved from the time that you filed to your interview, that is the time to tell the officer when they are going through and asking you, is this still correct? It is perfectly fine. It is perfectly normal. They know this happens, which is why they go through this at the beginning. Now, if we're talking one of those laundry list of questions at the back, if the answer has changed from the time that you filed to the interview, then then you want to always be upfront. But yeah, so there are certain things that can be amended. Sort of there's a natural opportunity to amend them, and certain things you kind of have to like stop the interview process, the normal process, and say, hey, the answer to this question is now different. Before you go in and start amending your answers, I would have a conversation with an attorney to find out what you're trying to amend and why, to see if they think it even needs to be amended. Because sometimes people misunderstand or misread the questions and what they're asking. So that's kind of my longish answer to that. They denied my whole case for no reason and reopened it, and my I-130 was approved. But 45 still said, I don't know if 45 still said, there's nothing after that. So when cases get denied, they tell you why they're denying them. So I don't know what your question is there. Sorry, I don't know what your question is exactly. It's been over 2 years. I applied for my I-130, 45. I got my work permit and advanced parole, but no green card. I don't know what the category is, so I don't know if that should be sounding alarm bells or not. Because you're asking about processing times. The processing times depends on the type of case. So the type of family case, what preference category are you in? And so I don't know. But I would go onto the USCIS website and look and see what the processing times are. If your case is beyond the processing times, I would ping them and be like, hey, what's up? What's going on? Hi, remember me? Kind of thing. And they scheduled an interview and then canceled the next day. Yep, sometimes that happens. And it could be, again, because the officer was maybe not in the office. Could have been human error, could have been software error. Things happen, mistakes are made, schedules change. It is incredibly frustrating. So I'm not saying it's not frustrating. But yeah, that doesn't necessarily shock me. Sometimes that happens. Someone is saying they have the marriage-based case. Their spouse did the biometrics. In July, I'm assuming July of this year. What is the next step? The next step, no one likes when I say this, but the next step is hurry up and wait, right? Um, Listen, y'all. uh, my clients know that I have a teeny bit of a sarcastic streak in me, but the next step is really hurry up and wait, truly. Which again, nobody likes to hear, which is why I kind of like to inject a little bit of levity into the situation. My clients and I work together years, so we might as well try to laugh our way through some of this, right? So you file your case, you get your receipt notice fairly quickly, like usually a couple of weeks. Then you get your biometric notice, or you get a notice that they're going to use your prior biometrics. That's like sort of around the time of your receipt notice, usually like maybe a month, couple of weeks, a month after, usually, from what I'm seeing. But once I take your biometrics, depending on what preference category you're in, it is a game of hurry up and wait. So that is why some of my clients become very, very familiar with the USCIS page to track their status and to see what the current processing times are. I don't know what marriage-based, what preference you're in, what marriage-based preference category you're in, or if you're an immediate relative. But the next step is hurry up and wait. If there was a advanced parole, which is travel permission, or work authorization filed, the next step is that you'll probably get those. Those will most likely be adjudicated. But yeah, your next step is to hurry up and wait. So yeah, but nobody ever really likes to hear that. But that is assuming that you filed your I-130 and your 45 and your work authorization and your advanced parole in one big packet all at the same time. Do all I-130 applications require interview, or do some get waived depending on the proof sent? Ooh, the days of waiving interviews are pretty much over. Waiving interviews was done so that it was done to help get through the backlog. The current administration is not for that. The current administration wants to do more vetting, do more security checks, and the interview is a part of the security check / vetting process. So getting an interview waiver is, if you get an interview waiver today, you are a unicorn. Okay. We're also seeing for employment-based cases, visa renewal cases overseas at consulates, the days of waiving those interviews are also over. So yeah, most likely you will have an interview. So not what you wanted to hear, I know, but you will most likely have an interview. I would be shocked if you didn't. Like I said, you will be a unicorn in today's I forgot the word I'm looking for, but you'd definitely be a unicorn. Are virtual marriage green card interviews a thing? I don't exactly know what you mean by virtual. I'm not quite sure what you mean by virtual. So I will tell you what I have heard of. So maybe this is your sort of idea of virtual. I don't know. During COVID, when we had social distancing and the agency was starting to, reopen the local offices and sort of come back and do interviews, sometimes what they were doing was they would have the petitioner and the beneficiary in the office in a room, and they would have an iPad or some sort of screen in front of them that was basically like a Zoom, like a video call. I don't know if it was on Zoom, but we'll say it was Zoom. I don't know if that's exactly what it was, Zoom, Teams, whatever. And then the officer would be in a different location. And so that is how they were doing social distancing. So that is a form of virtual interview. I'm not quite sure if that's what you mean. But sometimes that can happen. And again, that's another way to keep the process, keep your case rolling. It's previously it would have been considered maybe a non-traditional way to do it, but now, where post-COVID, where the entire world had to embrace being online, that might be a way. So I'm not quite sure if that's what you meant by virtual. But that's what I think of when you ask the question. What is it looking like to apply for advanced parole for AP? I don't know what you mean. I don't know what you mean by that. How strict are the marriage for papers now? I'm not sure I know what you mean. How strict are they? I'm not sure what you mean by that. It's 33 days and I haven't gotten my biometrics appointment yet. Yeah, I mean, I don't know what kind of case you have, so I don't know if 32 days is realistic or not. But I think what we have to understand is that there are thousands of cases pending with immigration. And that while 33 days or 16 days or 60 days seems like an outrageous time frame for us, it's really not in immigration. I don't worry when my clients don't have their biometric, like just a regular biometric notice within 30 days of filing a green card. That doesn't even make my radar screen for something to be concerned about. Especially if I know the processing time is like a year, right? Like 30 days at that point is that's like 2 seconds when it comes to an immigration case. So now, if you are waiting for a biometric notice because you have to get your biometrics done in order to respond to an RFE, 30 days is huge, right? So it's a different context. 30 days is absolutely huge. And in that case, I reach out to immigration and say, hi, can I get my biometrics notice, right? So it really depends on the type of case that you filed, sort of the overall length of time that it's going to take to adjudicate your case. But if it is a family-based green card, 32 days does not at all concern me. It does not freak me out. It doesn't, I'm going to tell my client, it's okay. I'm not losing sleep over 30, 32, 33 days at that point. So yeah, it's tough. It is tough to kind of wait and be patient, because believe I am not the most patient person in the world. I'm not, but there's a certain amount of patience that we just have to have when we're dealing with a government agency. So, and I will say this, and I don't know that I have a ton more questions left, but I will say this. Dealing with, sort of immigration or any government agency or any immigration process can be really hard, right? Some of my clients are, when we process their case, especially if it's an employment-based case, or even if it's a family-based case, but one member is outside of the US, right? We're dealing with multiple government agencies that have to coordinate with one another. And sometimes that coordination gets a little wonky internally for the agencies. And sometimes it is smooth sailing, right? But even smooth sailing for someone like me who's not very patient, or some of my clients who want things yesterday, waiting 4 days or waiting a week or waiting 2 weeks seems like an eternity, because this is so deeply personal. And but we have to remember that there are thousands of people at any given time. When I file an application for a client, there are thousands of people whose applications who have been filed before my clients, right? And that goes for every single application that's filed, right? The lines are long, right? So we have to be a little bit more patient, myself included, because sometimes I'm not. Sometimes I'm not very patient. But that is something that we have to really take into consideration. So sometimes I don't really like hearing it, and sometimes my team members have to remind me that I have to be patient. Right? Because it's hard. It's hard. Like I want approvals for all my clients. I want things to go like super smooth sailing, but sometimes you're working with multiple government agencies. My clients their case can pass through Department of Labor, USCIS, the consulate, CBP. There's multiple agencies that have to coordinate with one another, and even after the green card is issued, even after U.S. citizenship is granted, you're still dealing with government agencies because now you've got to change your documents over, right? So if you change your name, you gotta change all your documents over. If you get U.S. citizenship, you need to then go back to Social Security and have them change the language on your Social Security card, right? And so that doesn't always happen as quick as we would like it to. So that's just, sometimes that's tough. And sometimes I understand it's tough for my clients. Sometimes it's also tough for me. So, I just have to remind myself that I gotta relax a little bit. Let's see here. What else do we have? Hold on. Best advice on finding an I-94 when nothing pops up. Well, first, I would look at how long ago this individual entered. That would be number one. Because depending on when they entered, the information just may not be available. Number two, I would look online and go to the I-94 website and see if you can pull it down there. Depending on when they entered. You can file an I-102. That's also an option if you're positive there is an I-94 card to be had. You can also file a FOIA request. That is also an option. So yeah, but the I-94 card is super important. You always want to check your I-94 card when you enter the country. That is the card. It is issued electronically, but I've been practicing for more than a minute. So when I started practicing, it was an actual white card that was issued. So I will always call it a card. But you always want to check your I-94 to make sure that you've been entered correctly, entered in the visa that you thought you would be entered into. And if there's something incorrect on your I-94, you want to address it right then and there in the airport if possible. If not, you want to go, you want to make sure that you pull that down and address it as soon as possible. And an I-94 is also super important if you entered the country lawfully, fell out of status, became undocumented, but later married a U.S. citizen. Because if that is the case, entered lawfully, married a U.S. citizen, all of your time out of status is forgiven. But it hinges on you entering lawfully. So your I-94 card becomes a very, very important part of that application. So that's kind of how I would go about looking for. That's how I would go about looking for your I-94 card. But yeah, we've been on for a skosh under an hour. But I have a few more things I need to do for clients tonight. So we are going to call this quits for this evening. I'm checking my calendar. What's today's Thursday? I will be back on tomorrow around 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So if you guys have more questions, you're welcome to hop on then. Hopefully we can get to them. It's always fun to talk to people in real time. And just kind of educate you on what's happening in immigration. If there's something real specific, case specific that you want to talk to me about, you're welcome to do that. We just obviously can't do it on a social media platform because I'm not your attorney. So I would, you can click the link in the bio and schedule a consult, and we can certainly chat if you want to work with me and my team. If you want to inject a little bit of humor and a teeny bit of sarcasm into your immigration process, that is what we do over here. But it has been great. I am Carol Williams Immigration, and I will be back again tomorrow, about 7 p.m. Eastern time. So, and we work with clients all over the country and all over the world. So you're not limited if you're not physically in Florida. So I will chat with y'all later. This has been fun. I will see you tomorrow. And I'm going to see if I can figure out what happened to, we lost Facebook and Instagram. But YouTube and TikTok were all the way live, the whole thing. So those might be your best bets tomorrow. And I will chat with you soon. Have a great evening. Bye, guys.